Cecil Ray Eichler, born in 1933, the youngest son of 12 children, grew up on a farm just outside of Mannum. He didn't care much for school and just wanted to stay home and help his dad on the land. Outside work and tinkering with tractors was far better for Cecil's life education than going to school and learning to read and write. In 1952, at age 19, he spent 6 months in the RAAF at Point Cook, southwest of Melbourne. When he returned back home, he found employment with the Engineering and Water Supply Department of South Australia, building the Mannum to Adelaide pipeline. The year 1956 was definitive in the history of Mannum. The infamous River Murray flood of '56 inundated many river towns, particularly Mannum. The rescue and recovery process was a mammoth undertaking. Cec went to the aid of a dairy farmer on the swamp area at Belvedere, southwest of Mannum, to rebuild broken levee banks. The farmer couldn't afford to pay him and instead gave him an old tractor in need of repairs. This was the beginning of Cec's lifetime involvement with earth moving. From humble beginnings, he found work in and around Mannum until 1970, operating as C.R. Eichler, a sole proprietor. Later, in 1970, the business became Eichler Earthmovers Proprietary Limited, as Cec and wife Claire saw an opportunity for growth when Eichler Earthmovers were instrumental with civil works in the creation of Football Park for the SANFL in part of the newly developed area of West Lakes. This was a critical time for the business where opportunities to expand into the metropolitan area and statewide saw the family-run business fulfill contracts with Rowley Park Speedway and then at Speedway Park in Virginia. During these years, road construction projects throughout South Australia, ranging from government sector, local and surrounding councils, as well as private works, were undertaken. Local employment was offered by the company, and staff who lived closer to some of the projects were also employed from outside of the district. It was an extremely busy time in the 1980s. The company had elevating scrapers and bulldozers operating throughout multiple sandpits for CSR Ready Mix, while also working for many councils surrounding Mannum, along with ENWS, ETSA and the Highways Department of South Australia. Demand for ready-mix concrete supplies for the Murray Lands region was growing, and the first concrete plant for the town was installed, well supported by local builders and the Mannum District Council. Most of the concrete in and around Mannum was supplied by Eichlers. Claire handled all the bookwork, while Cec managed the business and operated plant himself, often working deep into the night to repair and maintain machinery. Friday Night Speedway was a passion for Cec. He was a prominent team member and financier in partnership with his great mate Kevin Fisher for the Bill Wigsell Wizard Racing team. After his speedway days, Cec and Claire purchased a 12,000-acre hobby farm in the Mallee, where they cleared over half of it of dense scrub to then crop and run sheep. All of this had taken its toll, and Cec's health suffered. Kerry began working in the business, which allowed Claire to care for Cec. Sadly, he passed away suddenly in April of 1991, only 3 months after Shane had joined the firm. It was an extremely tough time for the family and for the business. Interest rates were at an all-time high and work was scarce. Claire and Kerry had to make tough decisions and unfortunately had to let a lot of loyal staff go. Shane was relied upon to support them in their endeavours to continue on what Cec had started back in the mid to late 1950s. From this point onwards, contracts and tenders became the focus, and the business was successful continuing with that format. Admin staff were hired and an office complex along with weighbridge facilities were commissioned, and the building and landscape division of the business grew. The 1990s was a decade of restoration and growth and was a lot of hard work. Extra staff were gradually employed, along with project estimators and site supervisors. The list of equipment plant increased, along with the building of a state-of-the-art mechanical workshop. Large-scale projects throughout the state brought about movement into a subcontracting phase for larger civil companies. panel agreements were introduced, and success as a preferred contractor for local and state government departments took the company to another level. Kerry and Shane undertook extra study in areas to comply with government requirements and were supported and encouraged wholeheartedly by Claire, who was working toward retirement. The next decade was an extremely busy time, raising a small family along with extracurricular commitments with football and community committees. Kerry and Shane, with their loyal staff, would take the company into its next phase. Hefty regulations on contractors with workplace practices and demands brought about more paperwork and accountability. Training and recruitment became a focus in the civil industry, and the company had the largest number of staff in its history. Further plant was added to the portfolio and a new concrete plant commissioned, and technology became the norm within the office. It became a business objective to tender outright amongst its numerous ventures, and a successful list of civil projects have since been achieved around the state. Experienced in water, sewer, power and road building, Eichler Earthmovers have successfully constructed infrastructure for subdivisions where the majority of its work is today, while not overlooking the need to service the Murray Lands with no job too small. Proud of its earth moving, landscaping and concrete supplies. Kerry and Shane have always appreciated their staff as their greatest asset, and there have been many working with the company for over 10 years, some in their second decade. Eichler Earthmovers was recognised in 2017 by the Civil Contractors Federation of South Australia with a Lifetime Achievement Award for its contribution to the industry. In September of 2020, Eichler Earthmovers' 50-year milestone was quietly celebrated.